Hi, I'm Evan Chase. I'm the Vice President of StraightWays, here to record week number 2 of our weekly Behind the Scenes series. Now, if you haven't seen week number 1, please do, so that you're up to date on the story. So, week number 2, I'm going to give you the tour, really, of a building, okay? But this is just brick and mortar. It's nothing special. A building is a building. What's important and what I want to convey to you is really what God is doing behind the scenes. So, the important piece of this story is really what happened before we got this building. And the story goes like this. We were just a few short months ago, 2-3 months ago, in Carson, kind of Gardena. And our offices we're all there in one little office space and kind of dreaming of if God expanded the ministry, what would be our needs? What are we looking towards? And we kind of settled on, if we had 10,000 square feet, we could really do a whole lot more of what was on our heart to help at-risk youth. And the other thing was, it was kind of something we were struggling with, was we had just bought this restaurant in Watts called Jordan's Cafe, and we had put a lot of money into it. We had gutted it. It's basically bare, and dumped a lot of money into it, and basically ran out of money. And we had thought, how do we make this profitable, and what can we do to build this brand? So our thought process was, if we had a catering company, if we built Jordan's Cafe catering, we could begin to building the brand now, even before the restaurant is open. We could start training young people now with work experience, give them jobs now, and so one of the things we didn't have, which is pretty obvious, was a commercial kitchen. And so these are kind of things that were stirring in our heart back over in Gardena and Carson. Now, little did we know, this building was going to be answered a prayer. So I'm going to give you a quick tour, and you're going to see, even in my tour, how God had answered our prayer a couple months ago in Gardena and Carson, where we are currently sitting. So come on in, join me, and we're going to go through this building. Come on. So if you look behind me, we're in the first room. You'll see basically what looks like a marketplace. So when I was being initially toured of this space, it became really obvious that the pastor, his name is Pastor Scott Fairchild of Crossroads Church, already had in mind a kind of marketplace vision in his own heart. And then the evidence is in this room. I said, wow, this is an amazing room, when he first gave me this tour. And he said, yeah, we really wanted to make it like a little marketplace. And so this is where they have their children's church. And I'm thinking, not knowing initially why he's touring me, nobody came up to me right up front and said, hey, we're going to give this to you. It just started, just like you and I, a tour. And he said, show me around. But when I saw the marketplace and all the businesses painted on the walls, I thought, that's interesting. Follow me to the next room. So next, the tour was basically this space right here. And if you see around me, it looked very similar to when I got my first tour. It was pretty empty. It was unused. It was kind of a vacant building. It was pretty obvious to see. And so he's showing me around, and at this point I don't really know what I'm doing here. I just think, okay, here's an empty building. But then he walks me over to this room, and this is where another kind of moment in my head. So he walks me over here, Pastor Scott, actually, and Tracy Scott, really the both of them. They walk me into this room after showing me around that space, and they say, and we have this empty kitchen. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I could use an empty kitchen. So I think I asked something like, are you using it? And they said, oh, mostly not. And I could tell by looking around, kind of like this, it was not used. And so now I'm thinking, I don't know exactly what's going on, but God is in this. So I'm going to take you to the next location where it became absolutely obvious that God was moving. So follow me this way. So here's where it starts getting really interesting. I'm going to take you outside, but I just wanted to say, cutest toilets ever, right? Hello? So he walks me outside, okay? And he shows me around this area. And I'm thinking, okay, interesting. And this is where Pastor Scott and his wife tell me this. They said, Evan, we believe there's supposed to be a coffee shop here. Yeah, wow. I'm thinking, okay, now there's some teeth, right, to what's happening here. And he said, listen, you don't understand how strongly we believe there's supposed to be a coffee shop here. Now, Scott knows we have Black Coffee Cafe. He's been there. He's drank our coffee, so he absolutely knows what's going on. I think he knew what he was doing, although I didn't. And he says, you don't understand. He said, this place has been vacant for 2 years. And it was obvious. If you just watching this video, you can tell it's pretty much empty. And he said, we've had opportunities to lease this thing out, and we've turned them down. And we could use the money. I mean, who couldn't? This is a great opportunity to bring some income in. And he said, because the reason we've turned down opportunities is because we believe so strong that there was a coffee shop that's supposed to be here that we've waited for 2 years. And he said, wouldn't this be an amazing patio to remodel? And I thought, absolutely. So now my mind is spinning. And he finishes the tour, and I'm going to finish the tour with you right over here, because there's something really important. I want to wrap this video up, this second week up, to show you that blew my mind. So come here. So Pastor Scott walks me up to this window, basically, and he says, Evan, we have 10,000 square feet in this building. And I thought, that number sounds familiar. And he says, if we gave it to you, what would you do with it? And I thought, I was stunned. But the amazing thing was, we had already been talking about what we would do with 10,000 square feet. Now, we didn't know there would be a college right across the street from our 10,000 square feet. But that was just like icing on the cake. So I went to articulate the things that we had been talking about, what we would do with 10,000 square feet. And including a coffee shop, right, with an outdoor cafe. And I went on and on and on. And as I shared the story of what we had been talking about, Tracy Fairchild was looking at me and looking at her husband and looking at me and looking at her husband. And when I stopped, I kid you not, she put her hand on me and she said, tears welling up in her eyes. She said, have you been reading my husband's journals? And she said, Evan, what you just articulated, what you would do in this space is exactly what we've been preaching about, praying about, and writing about for 2 years. For 2 years. Needless to say, we were rejoicing. I mean, we were blown away. And so that began an ongoing tours. Jason and I started bringing people over, showing them around, business people, kind of mapping out what we would do here. But there was actually a big problem. We almost turned the space down. And I want to tell you, I'm going to end this week number 2 with kind of tell you, in the midst of this incredible blessing, the struggle that we had, that we were grappling with, and the reason we really almost turned this down in the end, as great as an opportunity this is. So I'm going to take you actually to the second story, because this 10,000 square feet actually is 20,000 square feet. So I want to take you upstairs to give you a glimpse at the second story of this building, and I'm going to wrap up this episode. All right? Don't go away. So now we're on the second story. And just on a side note, behind this wall is a second commercial kitchen. It's actually bigger than the one downstairs, but this is not about the kitchen right now. So he walks me to the second story, and you'll see coming into the camera lens, this. Now, if you don't already know, we work with at-risk youth, kids in foster care, and kids in poverty, and our focus is Jesus and a job. But you know what? It sure is nice to have a fun place like a gym to hang out and have a good time while we're trying to build people up and empower people. So needless to say, this was just, we're absolutely overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. But as I mentioned just a moment ago, we ended up having a kind of real strong burden. So what we were grappling with, as cool as this place was, 10,000 square feet, answer to prayer, 2 commercial kitchens, and a gym that we had no anticipation, that wasn't even in our vision. I'm as excited as we were about that, and as full and just worshiping and praising God was, that the thing we were struggling with was, where do we put our offices? I mean, as great as it is to have a gym, it's actually, when you get people up here running up and down, it's kind of loud. It's hard to have an office environment. And downstairs can be kind of loud because when you have people upstairs, it goes through to the first floor. And so for a couple weeks, we are just excited but burdened. How do we make this work? Where do we put our offices? And it got to a point where we had an unwillingness to a certain degree to fully commit to say yes to this place because we had no answer to this burden, this struggle, because we wanted to keep all our companies and all our staff in one location as close together as we could as possible, because we really enjoyed fostering the community spirit, the collaboration of all of us working together for a common cause. Different companies, but we had a common cause of helping empowering these young people. We didn't want to lose that. This place, as great as it was, we thought it might lose that. So we didn't have an answer. We just had a growing burden. And I want to share you how God answered the desire of our hearts in week number 3. So you got to come back, and you will absolutely be amazed. We were amazed, speechless, the way God answered our desire, and I think you will be too. So I want to encourage you to come back, and I also want to encourage you to spread these videos, because my desire is, and our desire is, that these are really not about StraightWays. This is not about Evan Chase, or really us at all. This is a testimony of what God is doing. He just happens to be using us right now for this story, for this time. So God bless you. Have a great week, and hopefully see you in about 7 days. Cheers.